What's up, brothers and sisters? Your brother G World 7_D. And I have here Who Were the Minoans? An African Answer by G.J. Campbell Dunn. And I'm talked about this book a little bit before. But first of all, I want to say this. We got to stop saying that our history started here in America as slaves. That's not true. And I really want brothers and sisters to take the time to put in the research because it's really needed. We've been lied to, man. We've really been lied to big time about who we really are. And it's bothersome because this information is there if you seek to research for it. But when you don't do no research and just do a quick Google search or go by what your college professor would tell you, you're really being indoctrinated with just opinions but not true facts. Alright, so I'm going to go to page 40. Go to page 40. Alright. Page 40. And I'm going to do some quick comparing certain things. I'm going to read some of this. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to read some of this, okay? If I can get some of you can see on the phone that I got here, okay? Let me give this a little light. Large animals, such as the elephant and giraffe, are not depicted, probably because they could not be transported by ship. Actually, they were able to do that. But elephant skins were worn on ceremonial occasions, and elephant tusks were used for carving. An ivory arm from a bull jumping scene is one of the finest examples. Veins and sinews are rendered in detail. Seagoing ships seem to have been invented about 3000 BC, actually before that, in or around the Persian Gulf. The horse-drawn two-wheel chariot appears about 2000 BC. Horses were domesticated on the Russian steppes and soon appeared in Iran. Horse-drawn chariots were used for hunting and warfare. Asses had been used well before the horse to carry loads and draw charts. They are the regular pack animal on early Egyptian monuments. They remain much more common in Africa and elsewhere. In sub-Saharan Africa, equids and other animals became reduced in size as the Sahara aridified. That means the drying of Sahara. Okay, so it really is no sub-Saharan Africa because before there was a so-called Sahara, it was a wetland. Alright, so when you hear Negroes tell you that black Americans come from sub-Saharan Africa, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. This is why you got to study various different aspects of history. It bothers me, man, when I hear this mess. Constantly, okay. I'm going to go on. Sir Arthur Evans illustrates a Cretan clay figure of a small ass carrying two large water pots found at Phaistos. Alright. Apart from the numerous clay bull statuettes, there are clay bulls' heads, stone libation vessels in the form of bulls' heads with gilded horns, metal bulls' heads with gilding, and stone and metal heads of lion. These last are very, very schematic. Lions were not known on Crete at this time. The artistic echo is African. Lion fights remain a popular subject. They were symbolic of the overwhelming power of death. Alright, we'll go on. Go on. Get a better image right here. Alright, let's go here. Get a look. Human figures wore African dress. The male codpiece and female long gown that exposes the breasts. Some males have a short, flared kilt. Kilts were worn in Egypt. Their sports, bullfighting and boxing, with one glove hand, common to both sexes, also African. Men take part in war and the hunt. Ships and chariots were used both for transporting goods and for warfare. Important persons traveled by seat and chair. I showed you a lot of Egyptian boats, some wooden boats where they had the chair inside, or it had a chambers where the pharaoh was sitting in the chair, or the general, whatever. The harvester vase, with its close-packed miniature figure, led by a village mayor in ritual sheepskin cloak, really represents a Samhain festival. The faces are reduced to a formal. The vase was carved in a stilette to imitate the shape of an ostrich egg and originally gilded. Like the steatite boxer vase, the Vap Philo cups are embossed in real gold, with scenes of men and bulls in a landscape. A fresco from the West House at Thera shows ships in a harbor. Most are being rowed by oarsmen, but one is propelled by a rectangular sail. The direction of movement is indicated by long steering oars at the stern. The ships are notable for their long canopies intended to keep the sun off the rowers, which we call African ferrisals. At the rear of these ships, a raised or ornamental compartment is reserved for dignitaries. Small rowboats are setting out to meet the fleet, and onlookers stand waiting on shore. From the same room, we have fragments of a sea battle, frescoes showing drawing warriors, the victims of a sea battle or shipwreck. Further up the wall, 5 warriors armed with long spears, tall rectangular body shields, and boar's tusk helmets march in single file to the right, away from a single-story building. These are the Mycenaean raiders. At the top of the fresco, Minoan herdsmen drive a flock of sheep and goats into a circular enclosure. Life was not always entirely peaceful. Chariots were used for hunting, which was a preparation and training for warfare. This fragment is from a boar hunt at Tyrannus on the Greek mainland. A gold bead seal from Thisbe shows a goddess shooting a deer with a bow. There is even a fragment of women fishing with a net. Religious scenes are numerous. Worship by women of a descending god with figures of 8 shields. Tree worship, column worship. The Hagia Trida sarcophagus shows funerary scenes, double axes and columns, drolls, libations with music, lyre and double pipes, boats of the dead, sacrificial animals, a mummy standing outside his tomb, offering of fruit and eggs, journey by chariot to the next life with Graffin steeds. The ring of next door apparently represents scenes from the underworld. A deceased couple led by a guiding bird-headed Jinni in the company of a lion, the raving power of death, and a griffin in the griffin court. Butterflies represent the souls, and indeed there is evidence elsewhere of the weighing of the souls in the form of gold butterflies. Butterflies were important in Crete for what they signified. For human eyes on butterflies, okay, let's talk about Arthur Evans. The women are shown as relaxed and informal, but not individualized. This art is freer and more fluid than that of Egypt, but the female figure is depicted with less attention than animals, the male with less attention than the female. Plants and landscape, rocks, grass, blowing in the breeze provide a vivid and sensitive background. Typically, the artifact created a miniature, quite different from Egypt work in its ethos. The subjects are naturalistic, but not exact imitations of nature, like the art of the African Yoruba. Minoan artists followed the idea of the Jaiora, an approximate likeness. Consequently, it may be impossible to identify Minoan plants or even animal plants precisely. Even though the subjects are usually taken from nature, the anatomy tends to be simplified and not strictly correct. The reasons for this lie in the belief that images embody power and could be used for witchcraft. The famous bee pendant from Mala is an example. The bees hold a honeycomb, but due to the inexact anatomy, efforts have been made to identify them as wasps. Magic may be involved. Egyptian depictions of the deadly scorpion, for example, are deliberately enacted. Likewise, the blue monkey from a plastered wall at Thera. Monkeys are not blue. Probably the Sudanese green monkey is intended. The dolphins on the wall of the Queen Megaron at Konos have a wavy line along the side that does not occur in nature, not to mention a human eye. They are very lifelike, but closer examination reveals the inaccuracies. Dolphins were believed to be people who had been transformed. One thinks of Dionysus, and the pirates he changed into dolphins. Fabulous creatures, too, are depicted. Winged griffins, sphinxes, men with animal heads, including a minotaur, men with bull's head. Human figures move in processions, wearing animal heads. Masks are the most obvious explanation here. The earliest masks covered the whole head. Minoan landscapes are distinguished by a sinister in rapport approach, which brings the specter into the environment. It owes much to African rock painting, but is more sophisticated. A curious figure in its ubiquitous wavy border, which gives a watery feel, creating movement and fluidity. The use of red, the most stimulating of colors, may be overpowering. These landscapes are alive. Minoan painted pottery is often decorated with small, delicate, abstract, or plant motifs. The Khmer's ware of the Middle Minoan period is of the class and resembles Kerma and pre-Kerma pottery. The vivid primary colors and combination of zigzag with circumventular motifs are typical. Cat calabashes and snakes are used as basics. The spiral, the aesthetic basics of Minoan art, is present everywhere. Central radial patterns are also prominent. The Barbatane pottery with raised lumps as decoration is also made, just as it is in Africa, sometimes enhanced with paint. Minoan art uses African materials: ivory, elephant tusk, gold, silver, rock crystals, fragrance, a vitreous material, steatite, and other stones, clay, bronze. The means of working stone were time-consuming and laborious, drilling with a primitive bowl drill, rubbing and grinding. But time was not a factor in substance economies. The bronze of Crete was poor in tin, sometimes being pure copper. Much the same can be said of African bronzes made at Benin, 2.5% tin or less. Benin is famous for its bronze cast miniature sculpture made by the Sari Perdue lost wax technique, which is also used on Crete. Vivid figures survive of men, women, bulls, and jumpers. Metalworking has a long history in Africa and was not confined to bronze. Delicate gold objects decorated with granulation and figure defy explanation to recent times. Early Minoan buildings are represented by circular stone tombs or tholile on the Mescara plain in southern Crete, up to 40 feet in diameter. These were incomplete or partial tholai, the upper part of the building being roofed with thatch. The use of stone for the lower walls echoes African practice and was intended to keep out termites. Look at this circular round tombs of Kumasa. Now look at the circular shape of it. I'm going to get to that in a second. Analogous buildings can be seen in Libya and Sudan. Stone buildings were once more widespread in Africa, including Nigeria. They were associated with metalworking. The Cretan tholo indicate an attempt to convert round thatch huts to stone by the use of corbelling. The later Mycenaean tholos, built entirely in stone, and corbel successfully up the capstone and are logically development of this method. Like the Egyptian pyramids, they used the relieving triangle, Great Pyramid, to take the weight above the large lintels, and incorporated a dromos or entrance passage, which was filled in with earth after the burial took place, like the pyramids and the tombs of Etria. They provided permanent stone dwelling for the dead. We relate the Mycenaean practice of burying their tholo under earth mounds to Egyptian technique of building by the means of earth ramps. I'm going to stop right there, man. All right. I want to first show you this image of this, what's called the Minoan snake goddess, and then a little cat on top of her head. All right. And you see her type of head and the cat on top of her head. That image is seen in Canada. Alright. along with Olmec style heads. So you have a female image that was in like the center, and you had Olmec hairstyle. That's in Canada, Alberta, Canada. That image, but it's been heavily deteriorated over time. Looked like it's been basically destroyed to some, being vandalized to a certain degree. But you see that image over in Canada, the same image right here in Alberta, Canada, near some Olmec heads. All right, that same image. All right, and then I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna also show you this. All right, the same round enclosure of stones. All right, that's built in the circular formation right here. This was found also. You can see this around the world, but this is also found in Miami. All right, in Miami, downtown Miami, you see that image on one side, a circular. All right, and then on the other side there was an encampment. And then in the middle of different land parts there was water. So they might have had it. They might have built an ancient bridge, and where they can dock the boats on the side, because when you look at it, you can tell there was water. One part it was land, but water separated the two. And this is around 7,000 years ago. It's dated, probably older than that. You listen to these white archaeologists, they be pushing dates back, man. It was dated 7,000 years ago. The same type of circular image that was in Miami, and the other side is in encampment. All right. I'm telling you this, and I also show you this. This is in Canada right here. This goddess in Canada is found, as well as Buddha and Olmec style heads. All this stuff was in America, man, and that stuff in Canada seems real old. It looks real old, and it's been ignored purposely. And as well as a Buddha statue too there, obviously of a black man. When I'm telling you this now, the terminology African use all the time, because anytime you refer to a black person, the term African is dumped on there, but not all black people are African. And let me make this clear. Not, like the black people in Australia, they're not African. But then you get some of these Pan-Africans who try to make them African. No, they're not African. They're black people, yes. But they're not Africans. Now, I want to really emphasize this. So-called black people are Aboriginal to this planet. And we have sort of the similar building structures globally. If you really pay attention to it, you look at get fine detail, all these building structures, they're very similar around the world globally. Remember I talked about mounds and tombs. You have mounds here where people are buried. Here, they talk about mounds and other places where people are buried in. You have to understand this knowledge is spread around the world. So when people tell you that you come from West Africa as a slave, that you some Bantu, and you were landlocked, and you didn't have no idea how to sail around the world, that is ignorant, man. And unfortunately, we got too many so-called educated Negroes who continue to teach that lie, that you were brought here on slave ships. No, most of us are already here. Most so-called black people are Aboriginal to America. I know that the Amara Squad don't want to tell you that, don't want to admit to that. They want to tell you that you come from African slaves. They are ignorant, man. And anyone who pushed that is extremely ignorant, because they haven't done no real research and they don't know. They don't know. You can probably get this online. Go to online settlement that's found that was over 7,000 years ago in Miami. And you see that same circular image. Now, I don't think that was in the stone, but there's some stuff in stone in the Americas. Yeah, pyramids in Miami too. In Florida, let's say this. But you see that circular image in America, and the other side it was an encampment. That's dated 7,000 years ago. So that goes beyond the mess that says that America's, quote, the new world. America's not the new world. It's not. I said it before. It's the new world to white folks, because The first time white folks came into the Americas, they came as slaves of the black rulers who ruled the Americas and who ruled Africa and who ruled Europe and who ruled Asia. They came as slaves. Later on, they started to explore. That's when the Americans looked upon as new to them, because this was when they was coming the first time coming over here as free people. I'm not making this up. This is from my study. So America's not the new world. America's an old world, like Africa's an old world, like Asia's an old world, like Europe's an old world. That terminology America's used as the new world, that's come from some white folks nonsense. How the hell you gonna be a new world when people have been here for thousands of years? Not no damn new world. It's new world to the people who came in from Ellis Island. That's a new world to them. But it's not a new world to us. We gotta understand that our people sailed the world. And now they use canoes, but they use wooden ships. They had chambers where the pharaoh or the general or the king could sit inside. And he would be covered up from the sun, from the rays of the sun, in his chambers. I'm telling you, if you do the research, you'll know this. So do not listen to these ignorant Negroes and Negresses telling you that you come from African slaves. That is a lie. I mentioned before, they had elevated structures that where boats can travel under. They had elevated roads. Some of them were stone, some of them were gold-laid roads, concrete roads, painted in gold. Some of them had that here in the Americas. I showed you before in my other videos, ancient highways that were here in America that went across the different parts of areas that once they had ancient gardens. A lot of that stuff is now, those pyramids are buried under forests and trees because those are ancient gardens that used to be kept up. But since they have been kept up for hundreds of years, it now become a forest, or so-called, like I said, rainforest, a jungle. You have to know your real history. Stop listening to Negroes tell you come from slaves. Stop listening to people like that. The first blacks who were enslaved were here, and obviously a lot of them over in Europe. Study your real history and start looking at features, because you did have some black people from the Pacific Islands who originally were here, who came here. Then you had some who brought over here as slaves. Learn your true history. Do not buy into some mess calling yourself ADOS, because you're not ADOS. You are aboriginal to this land. You're not descendant of no slaves. You're aboriginal to this land. That gives you more ownership. Sadie, stop saying you're a foreigner. You are aboriginal to this land. Anyone can be indigenous if they just born here, but we are aboriginal people of this land. We are the original people of this land. You have to understand that. You're not descendant of West African slaves, because there weren't that many damn slaves brought here. And even in Brazil, majority of them were already there, and they mixed in with some Africans. So you had two different groups of black people, probably more than just two, but two that I'm saying right now. This is why you have to do critical research and start thinking critically and stop thinking in a box that's being presented to you in these schools. Because you're being heavily indoctrinated and miseducated. And when I hear these clowns from the Amon-Ra squad run their mouths and make asinine statements about who we really are, like I said before earlier, they haven't done no damn research. They don't know what the hell they talking about, man. Do not listen to these niggas. I'm telling you, I'm begging you, do not listen to them, because they misinforming you, they miseducating you, and they leading you down the path of hell. Peace and love, brothers and sisters.